All right. Hey, Magic Makers. Today we're talking to Dr. Amanda Chan. And I wanted to bring her on the show because she is really focused in on how do we uh, better listen to our nervous system? How do we regulate our nervous system? And that's her prime focus. And she runs a program called Neuro Optimization. And so she's got tools and strategies to help us all regulate and optimize your uh, nervous system. So welcome to the show, Amanda.
Thank you for having me here.
So before we go, I know a lot of people are like, my nervous system, why do I give a shit about that? So why should people give a shit about their nervous system?
Well, you take it wherever you go. Everywhere you are, you have you with you.
Yeah, well, I think for a lot of people, it's kind of like stress. Like people are like, oh, I can handle stress, because like stress isn't like sitting in front of you, like waving its hand, being like, hey, girlfriend, you're on fire, So I think for a lot of people, our nervous system is just something that like just exists, like your heart pumping. Like we don't really think about it. It's a thing.
For sure. It doesn't really come into play until it does, right? And just with many health issues, as you said, people really don't notice it. Like you don't know how much your big toe does for you until you stub it, and then you can't use it, right?
Exactly. And so what made you, most people, she's a chiropractor by trade. So when most people think of chiropractors, you think, oh, I'm going to go get an adjustment, right? That's what I think about. Like, oh, I threw my back out, or I threw something out and I'm going to get an adjustment. At what point did you like, you know what? There's something more here that I need to like lift up the hood and really look into this nervous system issue?
Well, I've always thought that we're not just a physical being. So when people come in for, back pain, neck pain, that's great, but it's not just, the pain isn't just one aspect of them, right? So we want to know emotionally what's going on, mentally what's going on. One of the examples I give most often is, so I'm in Canada and we get lots and lots of snow. So people in the winter often come in throwing their back out.
Right.
And yes, I do want to know how much you're shoveling, what your posture is, and all that stuff. But I want to know, what were you thinking when you were shoveling, right? Were you saying, I hate my job, I hate my job, I hate my job, and then your back goes out, right?
Right.
Or were you saying, how come nobody's helping me? How come I'm the only one out here shoveling? It's 9 o'clock at night, everybody else is sleeping. Like if you've got that going on in your head and then your back goes out, who's to say which one it is?
Right.
It's probably a layer of all of them.
Yeah, no, and I like that, because I feel like so many of us discount the thoughts, or I don't even know what I was thinking about. How many times have you said, so Mr. Jones, what were you thinking about? And they probably looked at you like, what?
Often, yeah.
I don't know.
All the time. And that's why we have to delve deep. So then we go into, what were you doing before then? Right? And let's say I twisted my ankle because I was trying to get down the stairs. Why? Oh, because the phone was ringing. Okay, what else? Oh, I was upstairs. I was rushing. I was trying to do all these things. Oh, okay.
Right.
So that's what was going on in your nervous system, in your body at the time.
Right. So like, basically, if you think about some people, so I'm going to say this, and some people probably don't even know what this is, but it's kind of like back in the day when telephone operators had to like manually plug in phone calls. So your nervous system, you are basically, let's just talk about the person running down the stairs. I'm looking at my phone, so my eyes are just focused on the phone. Then I'm trying to move my legs, so my legs are in motion. Then I'm trying to talk on the phone, so my mouth's in motion. And then I'm trying to think about what I'm saying to the person and process what the person is saying to me while trying to sprint down the stairs to answer the phone.
That's a lot.
Yeah. And so you wonder why you skipped a step.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so and I think because for a lot of people, that's life, right? For a lot of people, there are 50 things that are happening all within 2.2 seconds. And we don't ever, stop and or feel we can press pause. We always feel like, and I don't, I wish I could point back to a period of life that said, hey, everyone should be moving at 500 miles an hour. Like, like, I don't know where that, like, that shift came from, that, like, if you're not going 500 miles an hour, you suck.
Well, it's part of culture, right?
Right.
And what we've been ingrained to in our nervous system. So it all starts back even when you were in utero, like in your mother's belly, right? Because the universe, God, whatever, nature has it so that it prepares your body to come into the world, right?
Yeah.
And so you develop your nervous system based on the family that you're going to come into. So if you heard screaming, yelling, whatever, you're going to develop a nervous system that will keep you alive in that, to parents that are like that.
So as I'm, baking as a baby, it just depends on, like, what my prenatal environment is like. So if my mom was a go, 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 and there was always, you kind of heard sound all around you, you knew, like, I need to prep for coming into a world where there's always going to be activity.
For sure. And if she was really, really stressed because of, a whole bunch of things, her stress hormones are bathed within you, right? Like you get the adrenaline, you get the cortisol, you get all of that coming into you too. And that helps to shape your nervous system.
Yeah. So now with that said, does that give me a leg up, or that, my nervous system is pre-wired to be at a higher level? Or is it more like your nervous system is always trying to find that kind of like a way to down regulate?
Both. So
all of the above.
Because it's about adaptability, right? How can your body adapt when it needs to, right? If you can be mellow and chill when you need to and ramp up when you need to, both are needed in society, right? And in life. If you can be in the right nervous system at the right time, that is when the magic occurs.
Okay. So now let's go further down this path. So how do I know, and I think you're right, because there are periods of time when, if you're in tune with your body, there are periods of time when you're like, what, I just need to sit on my ass right now. And just, sometimes it's for 5 minutes. Sometimes you're like, I need an afternoon of just sitting on my ass. Like, how do you start to, if you're not kind of in tune with that, like, I just need a minute, how do you start to process, like, I need a minute?
Well, on the very end of it would be mental breakdown and crying.
Right. Yeah. I'm trying to get us not to that point, because I'm sure listeners are like, oh girl, I've been there. Like, I'm trying to get us from, like, I'm crying in a ball to, like, just a step before the ball.
Yes. So one of the things you can do is always check. I always tell people, check where your ears are in relation to your shoulders. If they're like this, then that is a sign that things are not going smoothly at the moment. Right. And stress isn't bad, right? Stress can be a really good thing. You can use stress, competitive athletes use stress in order to help motivate them and push them to the next level. So it's not always bad. It's just, how is your nervous system adapting to the stress in the moment, right? Like, are you curled up in a ball? Because that's obviously too much, right? Or are you able to say, okay, let's look at it as this stress is going to make me a better person on the other end. Okay, what do we do from there? How do we take steps from that angle?
So the question I have for you is that, everything you said, I love. And, I have a lot of clients who they live in this high, like, OMG world. Like, I like desperately beg them to press pause. I'm like, for the love of God, like an hour, give yourself a freaking hour to just, like, sit. And, but for many of them, just as you asked, like, what was happening prior? A lot of them are so out of body with everything. And I've asked them, like, what, one of the things, and I was that person, so it's not me, throwing shade. I was totally out of regulation. And one of the things that I fought it hard was journaling. Like, that was one of the ways that it taught me to just process. And I had a client go, I said, well, why don't you just sit down for like 5 minutes? She doesn't sleep. And I said, why don't you sit down, like, before you go to bed, and just, like, write out, like, your thoughts of the day, like, just grade your day, like, how'd it go? And she's like, I don't like to ruminate. And, and I was like, okay, I can see, I get valid that, like, it could be in your mind. And sometimes I'm a ruminator, I will admit that. Sometimes it could be, replaying a bad incident at work, or replaying a fight with your kid, or replaying moments that you don't want to replay. But it also could be, and I don't want to Pollyanna it, but it also could be just looking at the bright spots of the day.
Absolutely. And I think part of the fear is that we're going to miss something if we're not doing everything, or that we're not going to be perfect, like, especially as women, right?
Yeah.
And if you're a parent on top of it, that, like, it's a lot of things that are being juggled at the same time. And we think society tells us, okay, if you don't do all these things, then you're going to miss, like, everything else. But
Right.
I think you would reframe and said, but the magic happens in the pause.
Yeah. Oh, that is some good stuff. Yes, it is. The magic happens in the pause, because it's like, if I think about, like, if we're driving in a car, I'm driving and you're the passenger, you're going to observe way more stuff than me, the driver, because I'm like, I'm trying not us to crash. So I can't look at whatever you see. Like, you could point it out and I can quickly glimpse, but you're right. Like, if I just take, a minute to just pause, like, and even if it's just like, what's going right in my life, because it's like, as I'm just kind of moving, I'm always looking at the shit.
And what is it that you're in a rush to get to?
Yeah.
Right? Life is about the moments and the pause, right? What if you literally take your pause and be like, wow, I'm spending time with, doing something I really love right now. Wow, this is amazing. This is so great, right?
Or flip it, be like, you know what? I hate this. And, like, it could be the snow shoveling. It could be like, you know what? I hate snow shoveling. And you're like, and then I think it's in the pause, you're able to make better decisions.
Absolutely. Because if you're on that go, 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 you don't have the reflection time that you need in order to, so you're with the go, 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 it's a different nervous system. It's the sympathetic fight, flight, freeze, like the trauma response nervous system. And you'll get a different answer than when you're in your sympathetic or your parasympathetic rest, digest nervous system, because they activate different parts of the brain. So you have access to different information.
Right. And so, as we kind of like, you talked about the both nervous systems. So, I'm going to go back to, like, our very part of the conversation. So you talked about the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. This is why I'm not a doctor, because if there was an oral exam, I can read it in my head and it sounds fabulous. For me to actually say those words, I'm like, hang on, I have to, like, break it into, like, various accent points so that I can, like, come out and it not come out like a word of jumbles. So one of the things you said is, when we are going crazy, right, and our parasympathetic nervous system is just, like, on fire, certain activities in our body are like, whoa, hey, we can't do that right now, because the five alarm fire is going off. And so for women, what systems, when you're like, go, 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 what systems are like, hey, we're just going to sit back here and chill until, like, that fire is out, and then we can start to, like, turn back on?
Perfect. Great question. So imagine you're being chased by a lion, because this is when the system is supposed to kick in, right? So your blood would increase to your muscles so that you could try and run away, right? So one of the systems, the digestive system, takes a lot of blood, right, in order to digest food. So this body slows that down, shuts it down, and uses that blood to send it to your muscles to get away. So you would not have good digestion during that time. Okay, you would increase your heart rate because you're trying to pump more blood, again, in order to run away or to fight, right? So you would have blood pressure issues, heart disease, right? You would have, your muscles would tense because you're trying to fight whatever. And so you would have increased muscle tension in your body, right? Your body's hormones of adrenaline, cortisol, all these would be pumped throughout your as well, which are not the same cortisol, like not the same hormones as like dopamine, like the happy hormones, right?
Right.
So your body is really in a state of, this is an emergency and I got to get away.
Right.
And so that is all you're going to be feeling versus, Okay, healing, digestion, rest, that's all a different nervous system or different part. It's part of the parasympathetic.
And so, one of the questions I ask when my clients check in with me weekly is I always ask about digestion, because for me, digestion is a signal of, even though you might not acknowledge stress, digestion is a key indicator that something's going on. So
Absolutely.
Other than you told me like, well, I ate yogurt and dairy doesn't agree with me, other than you telling me that, if you're telling me like, oh yeah, I was bloated all the time, I felt like my digestion was slow, in my mind, I'm like, okay, there must be something stressful situation going on. And you're just bypassing.
Yeah. And what I found a lot with people who are on, let's say, the weight loss journey, and they're doing all the right things, they're eating everything that they're supposed to be, they're working out there, and they're still not losing weight. It's not what you're eating, it's what's eating you.
Yeah. Yes. And, and I'm sure in your practice, and the reason why you started down this path is because you saw so many people just saying to themselves, well, this is just how life is. Or
Absolutely.
Not even acknowledging it. Like, they're just like, hey, my boss is a jerk.
Yeah, or they're coming in there and there's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
I just have this neck pain. And then 5 minutes later, they're crying and sobbing. And they're like, life is not good right now. I'm so stressed out. And you're like, okay, let's just acknowledge where you are right now.
Yeah. And I find that like, so Tony Robbins, he says this and all the time. And I find myself when I'm kind of like, sometimes I find myself like in a hyped up state and I'm like, hang on, it's 9 a.m. What's happening? Like just to be like, there's something clearly like I'm not consciously thinking about, but something that my subconscious is playing that my like hackles are up and I'm like, hang on, I don't really know what I'm thinking about. And I should be calming down. I shouldn't be in this like agitated state. I'm like, I'm cooking breakfast. Like, why does it feel like, my nervous system is starting to like ramp up for like a track meet and I'm not doing anything? So how do people start to just become aware of themselves and just be like, hang on, something's happening, but I don't know what it is. I can't put a name to it, but I just need to have this presence of mind.
Yeah, that's a good question. And so everybody's a little different, right? And so you need to know, like for you, you have these signs of, okay, it's starting to like, my thoughts are starting to increase. Like my shoulders are coming up to here. I'm feeling something in my chest. Like I'm feeling uneasy. Like all these are indications that that's where you're heading. Right. So your body's like trying to alert you all along the way until it sounds like, okay, fire alarm, right?
Right.
So you need to first see, what is it like when I'm fully relaxed? And if you don't know that, that's a key too, right?
Yeah.
So see where you are when you're relaxed versus where you are, let's say after breakfast. How am I doing after lunch? Like check in with yourself throughout the day so that like purposely at the beginning until you have the awareness to really see like you do in that moment, oh, this is happening already.
Yeah. I like what you just said. So how many of you, this is a question for you, but I'm also Dr. Chan's going to pop into. How many of you know what it's like to feel fully relaxed? And I'm talking like vacation relaxed, like, but not you laying on a beach or wherever your favorite vacation spot is, like on a Tuesday at 10 a.m. Like, can we feel that versus always feeling like you are, as soon as you wake up out of bed, you're on that treadmill and you're on level 10. So how do I like, I said to myself, like, yeah, I'm kind of like something weird going on. How do I start to get myself back into that kind of like, calm your mind, calm yourself down, lady?
Yes. So one of the techniques we usually start with is breathing, right? Is to monitor the breathing, because that will give you an idea of what is going on. And if you are way out, your thoughts are already a mile a minute, bringing yourself back to your breath will help you calm it down. And the breath for calming is in through the nose and out through the mouth. Okay. If you notice you're hyperventilating, you are not breathing into the nose, out through the mouth. Right? If you're getting ready to run your track meet, that is also not the breath that you're doing.
Right.
But it's, throughout many, like throughout Buddhism, Hinduism, meditation, like all ancient philosophies, it's always been showing people that breath can change your state. And so you can use your breath to bring your state back down.
Right. Yeah. It's funny because I've done a podcast, specifically about breath work, and
Beautiful.
it was, and she did like a 2-minute breath work exercise, and it was ridiculous how like quickly you went from like here to here, and I didn't even think I was like in a place, and I was like, holy crap, like that felt like, and it was 2 minutes, and I feel like for many people will immediately say, well, I don't have time. Like it'll just automatically say, I don't have time. And I'm like, okay, but it's 2 minutes. Like she purposely did 2 minutes because she's like, everyone's got 2 minutes. She's like, lock yourself in your bathroom, lock yourself in your car, sit at your desk and give yourself the 2 minutes.
For sure. Because if you don't have 2 minutes, then for yourself in that day, like everything else that you're rushing around to do, it doesn't matter as much as the time that you give you, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of us, we're so good at giving like women, especially so good at giving to everybody else. And then we skimp on ourselves.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right? We give to so many people that we do not have enough for ourselves. But if we have our cup full, right, then you're giving from a full cup, like an overflowing cup, as opposed to giving everything you've got and not being able to enjoy it.
Yeah, it's funny because it's like I feel like I'm talking into like the ether when I say that to a lot of women, and I get it. For a lot of them, like I go, you have to set up boundaries, and like initially boundaries feel very hard because people are so used to like, well, Amanda always just does it for me. Kim just always does it for me, and then when you don't do it, then they're like, well, what the hell? How come you can't do that for me anymore?
Yes. So for boundaries, what I tell people are boundaries are an act of love for yourself and for others.
Yeah.
This boundary that I'm putting here is because I care about you so much and I care about me so much. I care about both of us. And that's why this boundary is here.
Yeah. And, I think what boundaries also is another way of regulating our nervous system, because how many times I guilty I've said yes today, and then 30 days from now when the actual event comes up, I'm like, damn it, why did I say yes?
Yes,
because even at the time you were saying yes, even if it was 30 days ago, there was a little voice that was whispering like, girl, you don't want to do that.
For sure. You already knew. And obviously there are some things that you have to do, like taxes that you
right, exactly. Right, for sure. But I'm talking about like if a month from now, like, hey, can you bake cookies for the bake sale? And you're like, I don't want to bake cookies, right? You're in your mind, you already know it, but like, the sweet Pollyanna is asking you right in front of your face. You're like, sure, I'll bake cookies. And meanwhile, like you're driving home, like, I ain't baking no damn cookies. And it's like, you already know it. And then like, as the date approaches, it just feels like this like rock that's just like getting heavier and heavier on you.
And then you're baking the cookies and you're going, I hate cookies. I hate cookies. I hate
exactly.
Cookies.
Or you like, and no one ever says to themselves like, I'm swinging by the grocery store and they do a pretty damn good job of baking cookies.
Yeah. There's always another way.
Right. So one of the things that I was very interested about you was that you have a workshop that talks about beliefs and nervous systems. And that was what really drove me to be like, I need to have this woman on the podcast because, as you said, in your utero, we are tuning into what we're going to come into. So of my family of origin, believes that hard work is how you have to do it. Everything's a struggle. We don't speak up for ourselves. Like, so we start with like, this is what we've been exposed to in utero, but then I come out into the world and I see this as I grow up. And then it becomes now a belief, like, believes that like, if I'm going to get the promotion, I got to be the hustler. If I'm going to lose the weight, I got to struggle. If whatever in life you want to do, if it's not hard, if I'm not climbing Everest naked, barefoot, then it ain't going to happen. And, all these like negative, like limiting beliefs are just like, piling on me. And so clearly your nervous system is always going to be on, always looking for danger, right? It's
Yep.
always going to be looking for the saber-toothed tiger that's going to come chase you out of the cave and drive you back. So how do I, like, because I mean, for so many people, they say mindset, and like, I hate when people say mindset, because I'm like, that's like telling me like, just to like, walk it out if I got like a bad knee. Like that doesn't tell me shit.
Right. So one of the things that I like to use is this true? So similar to you, like that family of origin, I've got the same beliefs that were instilled in my nervous system of you have to work hard. I mean, I'm Asian, like that is one of the things that
You're like,
in.
that is like
I'm
a
like
flag
poster child for
right,
that.
that is like a flag that every Asian kid, especially like an Asian, insert American, insert Canadian, like anyone who does not live in Asia, that's the flag you carry.
Yes, that is my. So I have to say, if hard work was necessarily the key to success, then everybody who works hard would be successful. Then every like garbage person, every nanny who works so hard in their life would be a millionaire, and they're not.
Right.
So hard work is definitely a component of it, but it does not have to be the only way. Right? So you start saying, is this true? Like, oh, money doesn't grow on trees. Okay. Like only, people with money are bad people. Okay, is this true? No, because I know that money in the hands of good people will change the world.
Right.
So you have to start asking, is this true? Is this true? Every thought that you can become aware of, is this true?
Yeah. Have you heard of Byron Katie?
Yes.
Yeah. And she was instrumental in kind of helping me break that like hustle mentality of like, is it true? Right. And it was just, and I love that her I'll link this in the show notes as well. But I love that it's black and white. And, for so many people, we can always argue for our limitations. Like I can argue like I'm arguing in front of the Supreme Court for, anything that I've like felt in my core, you can argue for. And, she just basically said, anyone you see working hard are getting the results they want. And you can easily point out to someone who hasn't, or you can point to yourself. You're like, yeah, I've been grinding myself into the ground and I am no further than where I wanted to be. Yes, it's yes or no. Right. So I absolutely love that. And so when I'm on that grind, clearly I'm getting some type of satisfaction from this. Like there's some, I don't know if it's a nervous system hit that I'm getting. There's something that is serving me somehow.
Yes, it's your ability to stay safe, because that is what you know. That is the pattern that you know.
Gotcha.
Right? So your body works in, as you were saying, scanning, danger, safe. Is this safe? And your safety for you is in working hard.
Okay. So that's why even though even though mentally I feel drained, like this, I'm killing myself, I know what I'm going to get. It's certain. I know that I'm going to feel like shit at the end of it.
Yeah, essentially it keeps you safe.
Gotcha. So now, people who are like, they may be self-identifying. I'm hoping you are.
Me too.
But it's like, I feel like, for me, it was a never ending cycle. And for some of us, we all have to kind of come to that point on our own, which, that kind of like the, what do you call it, rock bottom point.
Yes.
And so if I kind of like, been hearing this for a while and I'm starting to just feel like, like I just can't anymore. How are some of the ways that I can kind of start to, and it's not an overnight journey, friends. It's not like, take 2 of these and call me in the morning. How do I start to, well, because, everyone thinks like, give me 30 days and, next thing you know, you're going to be a, brand new person and so forth. how do I start to right the ship? How do I start to say, a lot of the things that are up here that once drove me are driving me in the wrong direction.
Well, as you said, it's that pause. Just go, okay, let's put the brakes on some things right now and give me space. So try and build some space into yourself. If you're doing a million things at once, maybe you cut them to 500,000, And in that space, you'll come up with, okay, maybe it doesn't have to be with this part, or maybe like you'll ask different questions because there's room for it. And then, they always say, as the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So for you, it might have been Byron Katie, it could be Brene Brown. Like there's all these incredible people that you will attract into your life when you're ready for it. But you need that space, that pause, so that, it can come to you.
Yeah, no, I like the building in space. And so I feel one of the reasons why there's no space is that, again, I think it goes back to the certainty, right? So it's like, certainty is one of those top 5 human needs that we need. But I've also heard that people need also the uncertainty.
Yes.
So
Yes.
As certain as I am that if I hustle and struggle, I'm not going to get anywhere, but at least I know the path. It's kind of like driving your car and, I can go to the store turning to the right, but I can also go to the store turning to the left, but I always seem to turn right. So when people kind of go down that uncertain path, is that also a pause, or is it, do you go to a point and then you kind of freak out?
So as you said, uncertainty is great because you're building new neurons in your head, like making new connections in your nervous system at that time. Because you're like, what if I go another way? And even that turning that other way, you might see something that you never saw before. And that will link to something in your business that will take you to the next level. You don't know, right? So even building, when you go always in the right direction, what's there. Right. When you just veer off a little bit, and it doesn't have to be like, oh my gosh, turn my whole life upside down. Yeah. It could just be, I'm going to take another route to work today. And then you're seeing different surroundings, right? And then that starts to change.
It's funny. I like what you just said about radical, right? So I feel like why change for a lot of people is radical, right? You look on TV and it's like, take this magic elixir in 30 days, radical change. If I, do this new weight loss program, radically, I'm a new person, right? Shrimp and dinosaurs are running through the forest. Versus, ever see the commercial that says, hey, take a right-hand turn instead of a left-hand turn and just see what happens. No one sells you that. No one sells you possibilities. Everyone sells you that if you aren't taking leaps and bounds towards change, then are you even changing?
Absolutely. And it's part of the advertising, right? And it's part of the culture of making us wanting things fast and right now. Right? Look at kids, they're like, I want this, I want that, I want my iPad, I want my, whatever. I'm like, you're 4, you don't need an iPad right now.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's right. It is part of marketing, advertising, but it's like, as you study this stuff, no doctor, if I were going to a chiropractor, if I was going to a traditional MD, no doctor's like, hey, even antibiotics, they're like, take one of these and you're going to feel fabulous in just an hour. They're like, do me a favor, take it for 10 days. No matter how good you feel, take it for 10 days because there's a system.
Absolutely. Yeah. And because doing things, knowing that something might take longer, it's not sexy. you know?
No, it is like the anti. It's like the granny panty of
Yeah.
life. It's like, here, wear these. Or people are like, no, I want the sexy thong. No,
Yeah.
sometimes you have to wear the granny panty for a little bit.
Yeah. And we also, like the grannies, oh my gosh, have so much wisdom because they've been there for so long.
Right. You're like, the reason why they make them still is because there's some functionality to it.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to make it sexy for you. And so everyone's probably like, well, yeah, you're right. I do have a few of those in my drawer. So yes, every once in a while, you got to drag them out, bring them to the top of the drawer.
Yes.
There's wisdom in that. So she actually teaches a course on, taking your limiting beliefs and your nervous system and having a way to start to like get them in sync with each other. What made you come up with that?
Well, a lot of people need it. No.
Clearly.
I see people, let's say locally in my office, but I also know that sometimes I might not see them for months or years or whatever else is going on in their life, or they don't want to come all the way over here. So I needed to develop a way that people can still have access, even though they're not coming into the office. And so that's why I teach an online program, is so that people can still, as you say, journal, to meditate, do yoga, like take their pause, even if it's a little bit of time every day, but not have to come all the way here. And these tools are for themselves, so they can use it whenever they want, right? Like you don't lose awareness. And so as soon as you know the tools, then whenever you find yourself in a certain situation, you're like, I got the right tool for the job. It's like an empowerment thing.
Yeah, no, and I like that it's tools, because it's like, I feel again, the world sells us on, complicated, hard, where some days, if I like reach into my toolbox and I'm like, today I just really need to journal, or today, I just need to sit for 2 minutes and breathe, or I really need just like a day on the couch watching Hallmark movies, right? So we can like reach into our bag and look at like, what do I need today?
Yes. Beautiful. And to have the wisdom to follow through on what you need.
Right. Now, so I know that they're like, I feel like my ladies, they fall into two camps, right? There are people who are like, yeah, girl, I got you. I know exactly what you're talking about. And then there are the others out there who are like, really? Pause? Are you sure? I don't know. I got goals, and if I stop, am I gonna hit my goal? Like, well, I don't know. Kim, this is just
Well, remember that we see a lot of duality, right? There's the yin, the yang, the masculine, the feminine. Like we live in polarity, so there's got to be one and the other, right? If the masculine is doing, and you don't spend time in the feminine, which is being, feminine is also the receiving. So how can you receive everything you've been doing? Like you're doing good, great. Now you've got the goals there, but you keep doing, you don't receive.
Did you guys just hear that? Like that was like a freaking, I don't know, I was heavier than a coconut. Maybe it was like a bowling ball to the head. Like that was just like the shit right there. End podcast over. Now, did you like take in what you just said? Let's just like break it down. She said, if I'm always moving, do I receive the good? So for all the shit you're doing, if I don't stop and assess, how do I know I got it? And it's like, especially for those women who are out there who's like, it's never enough. Well, how the fuck you know? If you don't stop and say, is it enough? It's kind of like, I always equate it to like what people do regularly. How many of you look at your bank account at least once a day? Once a week, every few days. You get a fucking text every time you paid, someone hit your credit card. That's checking in. But do you check in with yourself like this? Like that, what she just said right here, you need a pause every day. Scan what's up. For all the things I'm chasing, did I catch a toe of whatever it is that I'm chasing? Maybe I got the whole tail. Who knows?
You might have gotten everything you wanted, but you weren't aware of it because you weren't
Yeah.
there to receive it.
I absolutely love that. One of the limiting beliefs that I had for a long time was about receiving, and it was phrased in similar fashion. And if you like, and I'm hoping that someone got a bull and ball to head, because that was like what kind of cracked me out of my like never-ending chase.
Right. And like, think about yourself as you give a gift. Like, how fun is it to give a gift that you know somebody's gonna love, right? Like, you're like so excited. And then also, how fun is it to receive a gift?
Well, then ask that question. Do you like to receive gifts?
Yeah. Some people don't feel they deserve it, right?
Right. So it's like, that was what started the thing. Is like, I suck at receiving gifts. And I've gotten better at it. But if I look back in my life, I've always sucked at receiving gifts. And then I like giving them. But receiving, there was always some deep-seated thing of like, did I work hard enough for this?
Then how are you going to receive your goals when you get there if you can't receive them now?
But I never received my goals because I always was like, it's kind of like working on an old house, and that's like, you just like, open up one wall and you're like, ah, crap, and then you like, it's just kind of like this never-ending cycle. That was how I was with my goals. Always were like, well, I told myself that I was going to do 5, but I'm looking over there. I don't even know this girl from Adam, but she looks like she's doing 10. So if I can't do 10, then it's crap. And then you kind of always like upcycle your goals without ever acknowledging that you're like, you know what, I hit 5.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So yeah, the receiving part, like that right there was just like, boom, like interview over, like so good. And so when you start people kind of, down this path, I love how you're just like, even in just like everyday practice, when people come in for an adjustment, you're like, you are looking at what's going on, where so many people just want you to just like laser in on, I came here because my neck or my blah hurt. And you're like, I need to expand.
Absolutely. But you have to expand further than, because life, we're always nature. If you look at nature, it's always for more life, right?
Yeah.
More life. It's always for more growth, more life. And so it's not just more life for me, it's more life for me, for you, for all of us. And that's how we can expand. Yeah,
no, I like that, because it's like, as much as we are so over the pandemic, all of us are just like an uncle, but it just taught us how interconnected everything was. Right. Yes. It just was like, it took one thing in another country to shut down the whole world. And so think about like one little thing in your body, what it could take to shut down everything if we don't pay attention to it.
Yeah. And also people think, symptoms are something that they need to get rid of, that they're bad. They're just telling you that something needs to change. Like, they're the consequence. Imagine that you could eat pizza all day long and ice cream and cake and whatever. Like,
sign me up.
Right? What would happen if your body didn't go, hey, like, we're having some issues pumping blood to the rest of it,
Right. You're like, your heart's like, hey girl, right now I got a clogged artery, so yeah. I'm gonna need some help here.
Yeah. So the symptoms are just literally saying, hey, focus on me for a sec. Like, you need to do something about this.
Yeah, I had another guest on probably like 2 years ago, and she said this to me, and I'm, what you said to me about if you can't receive, then how are you going to give? Or if you can't give, how are you going to receive? She said this to me, which is on par with what you said. She's like, if you can't hear your body whisper, how are you going to hear your body scream?
Yes. And
so many of us, and you, because of what you do for a living, I'm sure many people only come to you when it's like screaming and, pretty much running out of the house on fire.
Yes. And house on fire means like reconstruction of an entire house, right?
Like it's like black sticks in the ground.
Yeah. Versus my pot's on fire. Okay, right. We can put the pot out and nothing happens to the house.
Right. You're like, I smell smoke. Like, okay. Yeah. when you smell smoke, come see me, because like we could probably do a lot of more easier preventative methods versus, I used to be a personal trainer, and some people would always be like, oh, my shoulder always bothered me. And then, they proceed to do whatever causes the pain. And then eventually like, yeah, my doctor told me I can't work out for 7 weeks. I'm like, you kept telling me about your shoulder. And I'm like, you need to see somebody. And what could have been like physical therapy is now you completely out of the game.
Absolutely.
So yeah, this has been like absolutely, absolutely fabulous. Like, you basically were just like, our nervous system is more of I just think about like our alarm, right? So many of us have an alarm, and some of us are conscious about setting it, and some of us are like, I have an alarm.
Not after today.
Not after today. So today, the goal here is to like consciously, set it. And, just like an alarm system, like your nervous system, it's scanning for you, helping to protect you from yourself. And I think in this day and age, it's mostly protecting you from you.
Most of the dangers, yeah.
From the danger, which, a lot of it can be self-imposed, like a lot of it, or like mentally imposed danger. So if people were to like look for you on the socials, how can they find you?
My website is the best. So it is optimizemyhealing.com. And on Instagram, it is Dr. Amanda Chan.
And then Amanda, you talked about this course that, it's online. So pretty much from anywhere on the planet, you can take it. So if I was like, all right, that sounds interesting. Who is your ideal target for this course?
Somebody who has come to a point in their life where they realize that something needs to change. What is currently going on cannot continue for them. And so that is when most people decide, okay, I'm going to make a difference and I'm going to make a change in my life. And that's when they usually enter in my life in some way.
Perfect. So it's basically you're at your wit's end, but you don't know what something's wrong, but you don't know what it is. You can't articulate that. And so when I take your course, I've always heard that it's best to put a name to something. And so when I come to your courses, am I able to kind of start to articulate what are some of the things that are, pushing on my nervous system?
It's not necessary.
Okay.
It just needs to know that something needs to change. And so sometimes change is motivated by fear. So
Gotcha.
Some people come in because they fear something happening to them, and that's okay. That's a great place to start.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you're motivated by desire. So what you want, like the life that you want to live. Right. So we have people on both spectrums, and we just start with wherever you are.
Right. And I love that, you talked about, it's like, you're not Maytag, right? You're not here to fix people, but you're here to say, here's my whole bag of tricks. I'm going to share with you the bag. And at some point you might use every tool I got. And some of you might just latch on to 1 or 2 tools, and that's what's going to get you through this point right now. And then maybe you might reach in for another bag, or these 2 or 3 tools might be what you use for the rest of your life.
For sure. So it's all about giving you the tools that you need in order to create your own transformation.
Gotcha. I have absolutely enjoyed this conversation. It's been, I love hearing about things under the hood, right? Because so many of us, if it's literally like, if I'm not bleeding from the eye, it's not a problem, right? Or, my arm isn't severed off. It has to be, for us, we hit on it. It has to be so severe. Like it has to be so severe for us to seek help. Like it can't just be like, I just feel off, and I'm glad that you are out there kind of like, no, it's okay to feel a little off. Like that's a problem. Like it doesn't have to be a big problem, because when it is a big problem, we could have stopped it when it was just this little feeling that you had.
For sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show today. And everyone, make sure you are following her. She dropped some great nuggets. And, from time to time, we all needed to check out, like, I need to check my crazy sometimes, and you can still be crazy, but sometimes you need to just check it. And then, come back into the game, sit on the couch, watch a little Hallmark. That's my favorite afternoon treat, because it's always a happy ending. There's always a kiss at the end. All right, ladies, enjoy the rest of your day, and I will chat with you next week.